Welcome back to my channel today, and in this video we are going to be ranking all 24 exotic weapons that are currently within Destiny 2. Now, the Curse of Osiris has been out for just over 2 weeks, and with it came a couple of brand new exotics, a few of which were absolutely game-changing, and then you also got some changes to existing exotics in the Destiny universe that altered the way that I see these weapons and how they play out within the game itself. Now, this list is going to be going from exotic 24 to the very top exotic in the game, number 1, but I have also taken the time and arranged all of the exotics in different tiers as well. There are actually 4 tiers in total. The 4th tier being essentially the exotics that should never be used or that very little people are going to use, and the top tier, tier number 1, are all of the exotics I consider to be essential to different loadouts in the game. So let's go ahead and get into it. So the very worst exotic, in my opinion, in Destiny 2 currently is going to be the Jade Rabbit. Now, I know a couple of people might not agree with me. If you disagree with me at any point in this video, let me know down in the comment section below why. I'm very interested to know why some of you guys do like these exotics, why some of you guys might not like these exotics, and so on. So let me know down in the comment section below. Anyways, the Jade Rabbit has one exotic perk named the Fate of All Fools. Chain body shots to gain bonus damage on your next precision shot and return ammo to the magazine. So obviously this is a returning exotic from Destiny 1, where most of the game it was actually a PlayStation exclusive, but it honestly was not that good in Destiny 1, and it is even worse in Destiny 2. The exotic perk really isn't that useful at all, and this thing fires so slowly it's barely usable. I don't know why you would use this thing over other scout rifles like the Nameless Midnight or the Mananan or other things like that, and I feel like if an exotic can't even keep up with some of its legendary counterparts, it's really not worth being an exotic. So this thing should not have come back with the DLC, and I don't think anyone should ever use it. Now, the next exotic on this list is going to be the Fighting Lion. Now, a lot of people in my first video got really pissed off at me because I said I hated this thing, and I just thought I would explain myself a little bit more. I feel like generally for an exotic to be considered good or god tier, it has to be extremely easy to use. Some of the best exotics are the ones that don't have a learning curve, and that's because if you have to take the time to master an exotic, is it really that good? I mean, if you get really good at throwing rocks at people, eventually you're going to be able to kill people by throwing rocks at them, but that will never be as efficient as shooting someone with a gun. So I hope that metaphor kind of cleared things up, but we are going to be talking a little bit more in depth about why I don't like the Fighting Lion. So its one perk is called Delayed Gratification. Grenades bounce with delayed detonation. Now, like I said, a lot of people seem to love this exotic grenade launcher. I really don't. I'm not a fan of grenade launchers in general, and I just feel like this is a worse version of the worst class of weapons within Destiny 2, so I don't think it's really consistent or good enough to be considered a good exotic, and honestly, I don't think I will ever use this thing. So next we're going to go ahead and talk about the exotic sniper rifle, the Darcy. Now, this one has a pretty bad exotic perk that really only shows you extra extraneous information about enemies whenever you're aiming down the sight, and none of this information is really useful. So you have a sniper rifle exotic, which is honestly probably the worst class of exotics. Then you have a really bad perk, and then you put all of that into a game where sniper rifles really aren't that good, and you just kind of have a losing combination. So this game is very obviously dominated by rocket launchers, shotguns, other weapons that are not sniper rifles, so any sniper rifle exotic is not going to be that good. Now, on that note, I'm also going to be putting the Borealis right here. I have never played with the Borealis. I do play on Xbox, so it's not going to be a technical part of this list, but if I did have to guess and say how good the Borealis would be, it would just be in the spot above the Darcy. Its exotic perk is way better, but it is still a sniper rifle in a game dominated by weapons that are not sniper rifles, meaning it's not going to perform very well amongst its peers. Now, for the next exotic on this list, we are going to be talking about one of my biggest personal disappointments in Destiny 2, the Graviton Lance. Now, this thing has 2 exotic perks. The first one is called Black Hole. The third shot in every burst does high amounts of damage, and the second one is called Cosmology. Kills with this weapon cause enemies to detonate. Now, I really want to like this gun. Its name is amazing, its aesthetics are amazing, it has amazing sounding perks, but when you put all of these things together in the game and then you actually try to use it, you get an extreme level of disappointment. Whenever you try to use this weapon, you really don't feel that powerful. If you miss the third shot in every burst, you essentially do 0 damage to enemies, and I feel like this weapon does a terrible job of living up to the power fantasy that exotics should give the player. So overall, I think the concept for this exotic is absolutely beautiful, but the execution was poor at best. Now, the very last exotic in tier 4 is going to be the Hardlight. Now, I know a lot of people might take a problem with this, so hear me out. So its only exotic perk is called Volatile Light. This weapon has maximum range and the bullets ricochet off of all surfaces, and then it also comes with the added bonus of being able to switch between any of the 3 elements. Now, I really want to like the Hardlight. It's pretty similar to how I felt about the Hardlight in Destiny 1. I really do want to like this weapon, but I don't. There are like 20 better auto rifles in the game. You have things like the Uriel's Gift. You have kinetic ones like the Ghost Primus. There's just better auto rifles in the game that could outclass this weapon in every aspect of the game. And really, there's just no reason to use the Hardlight. It's a waste of an exotic slot, and unless you're planning an epic party, you really don't need it. As such, I would never really recommend anyone seriously using the Hardlight. Now, that was the completion of tier 4. Now we're going to go ahead and move on to the 3rd tier of exotics. These are ones that are still pretty bad, but some of them might fit in or have specific purposes within the game. So the first one in this tier is going to be the exotic scout rifle, the Skyburner's Oath. Now, this weapon fell quite a bit from its ranking in the last video that I did, and that's just for one main reason. The Curse of Osiris brought a lot of brand new weapons into the game, and most of them just are better than this weapon. There's not really a reason to ever use the Skyburner's Oath anymore, and if you take into consideration that most of the new content is not Cabal based, it gives you even less of a reason to use a Cabal themed weapon, especially when the perks on it are only good for fighting the Cabal. So in a Vex themed expansion with a Vex themed raid, you're really never going to find yourself in a situation where the Skyburner's Oath is going to be good or useful or something that you should really dedicate your exotic slot towards. Now we are going to move on to the next exotic, which actually jumped up a lot from the last video. This is going to be the exotic grenade launcher, the Prospector. Now this weapon has one exotic perk called Excavation. You can hold down the trigger to auto-fire grenades and they will all detonate at once whenever you release the trigger. Now, I really did not like this exotic in my last video, but a lot of you guys did a fantastic job of pointing out that this is actually the only way to solo the Watcher rooms in the bottom of the Leviathan raid, and that opened up my mind to a whole bunch of possibilities for this weapon. Now, it's not part of my normal setup. I don't believe it will ever be part of my normal setup, but if I just want to hop on Destiny 2, go turn in my keys from the raid, and I don't have any friends, boom, you hop in, you don't have to rely on anyone to kill their Watchers, you walk in a room, you kill all 4 with this awesome gun, and then you're done for the day. So it's not the best exotic in the game, but it definitely has its niche that it fits into, and I think that because of that, it is actually much more useful than other grenade launchers like the Fighting Lion. Now, the next exotic we are going to be talking about is the Tractor Cannon. Now, I always have an internal struggle with this exotic. If you guys don't know what it does, it has one exotic perk called Repulsor Force. It fires a force push instead of an actual shotgun shot. There is no utility with this weapon, but it is very fun. Whenever I consider exotics in Destiny 2, I feel like they need to have one of 2 qualities. They need to either be extremely good at what they do, or they need to be extremely fun. Now, while there isn't really any level of utility to the Tractor Cannon, it is a lot of fun to use. So it is going to be in tier 3 because it is pretty much a waste of an exotic slot, but if you're just looking to hop into Crucible, have some fun, get some funny kills, this is definitely the way to do that. You can push people off of cliffs, you can push people in the walls, you can push back people in their supers, and really you can sum it up by once again saying there is really no actual utility, but it is a lot of fun. Now, the next exotic we are going to be talking about is the exotic hand cannon Sturm. Now, this one has one exotic perk called Storm and Stress. Kills with energy weapons grant bonus precision damage until you reload, and the second perk is called Accomplice. Kills with this weapon reload your energy weapons. So there's obviously supposed to be a nice synergy between this and your energy weapon, but I feel like that relationship is a little bit too complicated for it to be taken seriously, and when you consider that there are other exotic hand cannons in the game like the Crimson, which we'll get to, or legendary hand cannons like the Better Devils or the Midnight Coup, there's really no reason to ever use the Sturm. It looks really awesome, the ornament's really awesome, the lore behind it is really cool, it feels really good to use, but once again, the utility is just not there. There are legendary counterparts that are so much better, and there are other exotic hand cannons that are in completely different leagues compared to this one. So I do like the idea behind Sturm, but it is just not good enough to be one of the best exotics in the game. Now, the next exotic that we are going to talk about actually suffers from pretty much the same thing. This is going to be the Rat King exotic sidearm. This one's exotic perk is called Vermin. Reloading after a kill grants a brief period of invisibility. Also gets stronger if your teammates are using one too. So this one is pretty cool. It's got a great idea. The exotic perk is very unique, which is something I personally appreciate, but there are sidearms in the game that are so much better than this. If you put on a Last Hope, you can shred people in less than a second, whereas it takes about a second and a half to kill someone when you are using the Rat King. In addition, the invisibility that you get lasts for less than 4 seconds, meaning that you can't even get your health back. This is something we talked about in the last video, and it's my main problem with the Rat King, and it did not get a balance with the newest update, which honestly does not make any sense to me. This is a really cool exotic. It has an extreme amount of potential. I hope that it lives up to that potential in the future, but right now it's just kind of sitting in a weird limbo state where it could be really good, but currently it's really not. Now, the next exotic we are going to talk about is one that actually got added into the game with the Curse of Osiris and had one of the most insane entrances of any exotic ever. This is going to be the exotic fusion rifle, the Prometheus Lens. Now, it has 2 exotic perks, the first of which is called Prismatic Inferno. This weapon fires a solar trace beam and generates a damaging heat field that grows while the weapon continues to fire. And then the second exotic perk is called Flame Refraction. Kills with this weapon return a fraction of the ammo used to the magazine, extending the beam's duration. Now, whenever the Curse of Osiris first launched, there was actually a bug where this weapon was extremely broken in the Crucible. You could kill people faster than any other weapon in the game, almost by a factor of 2. It was absolutely insane. It was a lot of fun. However, they have since fixed this weapon, and in order to do so, they just nerfed it all the way down to the ground. It is essentially useless right now. Deej did say that in January, they're going to be doing another weapon tuning where they're going to bring this thing up to where they originally hoped it would be, but for right now, it's pretty good in PvE for taking care of ads, but in Crucible, it is the equivalent of having a sack of potatoes. So the concept is awesome. I'm very excited to see where this weapon goes in the future, but for right now, it's going to stay a tier 3 exotic. Now we have reached the final tier 3 exotic, and this is going to be another one returning from Destiny 1 into the Destiny 2 universe, the Telesto. Now this one has 2 main exotic perks. The first one makes it so that fusion projectiles attach and detonate with delayed void blasts, and multi-kills with this weapon immediately reload your equipped kinetic and energy weapons from your reserves. And there's kind of a hidden perk as well where these act as trip mines. They are motion sensitive, so if an enemy walks over them, they will blow up early, or if there's no enemies on the ground, they'll just kind of sit there for a while, so that's pretty cool. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be mad that I put Telesto this low on the list, but once again, it's more of a relative thing. Whenever I rank the exotics in this list, I can't just put them in a glass box all around themselves. I have to compare it to everything else in the game. So my main problem with the Telesto is that there are much better options for every other aspect of the game. If you are looking for something amazing in the Crucible, you can just use the main ingredient. It won't take up an exotic slot, and it is just as effective, if not more effective than the Telesto. And then in PvE, you would just use the Merciless because it has a much higher damage output potential than the Telesto. While it might not look as cool, it is much more effective and a better utilization of your exotic slot. So while I do have a personal love for the Telesto and its exotic perks, it's just not good enough to be in the top 2 tiers of exotic weapons. So now we have reached the second tier for this list, which is going to be the exotics that are pretty good and deserve to be on your character, but are more of situational exotics that aren't good for pretty much every aspect of the game. So the first one on this one is going to be the Risk Runner. Its main perk is called Arc Conductor, and it makes it so that whenever you take arc damage, it increases your weapon's power and bullets have a high chance not to consume ammo. So essentially, whenever you take arc damage, you have pretty much unlimited ammo, which makes this thing extremely situational, but also extremely devastating. It's definitely one of my favorite exotics to use, but once again, you have to use it in the correct situations, which pretty much in this case is only against the Fallen. Most Fallen enemies will deal arc damage, making it so that you essentially have unlimited ammo in these activities, but if you were to take these things against, say, the Cabal, it would be pretty much useless. So use this thing with care, plan which activities that you use it in, but if you plan correctly and accordingly to the damage that you will be taking, you will be nearly unstoppable. Now, the next exotic on this list is just absolutely pure fun. This is going to be the exotic hand cannon, the Sunshot. Now, whenever you kill enemies with the Sunshot, they just explode into a fiery masterpiece, and it is just beautiful. There's something so satisfying about running around, killing smaller ads, and then just blowing to bits. Now, it may not be the most effective hand cannon in the game, but it is extremely extremely satisfying just to watch everything blow up in your path, and because of that, it is going to be placed in tier 2 on this list. Now, following that, we are actually going to be talking about the only raid exotic currently in the game, the Legend of Acreus shotgun. Now, this weapon's exotic perk is called Shock Blast. This weapon shoots an extremely high damage arc shot. So this shotgun always manages to amaze me in the Crucible. It's got a very high output for damage, and it almost never gets hit markers, which is really cool. Now, the range can be kind of hit or miss. Sometimes when you think you should hit an enemy, the shot won't. But to counter that, sometimes you hit insane shots from pretty far away that you thought there would never be a chance of you hitting. It's just really fun. It's extremely effective. You should essentially always get 3 or 4 kills when you get heavy ammo for this thing. And honestly, I just keep going back to it. Now, it might not be the most effective heavy, like I've already discussed. If you use something like the main ingredient, you're probably going to be a little bit more consistent and a little bit better. But the Legend of Acreus just looks so awesome. It's so much fun that I just had to put it this high up on the list. Now, the next one we're going to be talking about is the Sweet Business Exotic Auto Rifle. This one's exotic perk is that it's a freaking Gatling gun, and I think there's pretty much no other argument to be made. This weapon is really fun to use, it's really effective, it looks freaking fantastic, and I don't think anyone will dispute the idea of you using a giant Gatling gun to mow down hordes of enemies is just extremely fun. As such, I put it this high up on the list. Argue with me if you want to down in the comment section below, but just know your argument is invalid. It's a Gatling gun, it's amazing, and it is coming in this high up on the list. Now, the next exotic on the list is going to be the exotic pulse rifle, the Vigilance Wing. This one's exotic perk is called Harsh Truths. This weapon shoots 5-round bursts, and when an ally is killed nearby, you gain health and increased movement speed. Now, I really like this weapon mostly for the fact that I love pulse rifles, and it is pretty much one of the only viable pulse rifles in Destiny 2. You have weapons like the Time-Worn Spire that are pretty good, but no other pulse rifle, in my opinion, can quite shine a light on the Vigilance Wing. It is extremely good in the Crucible. The exotic perk is pretty situational, but this weapon having 5-round bursts instead of 3-round bursts is extremely important to its utility and how quick of a time to kill it has. So overall, I love this weapon. I love the perks, I love the aesthetics, and it is going to be my 7th favorite exotic weapon of Destiny 2. The next one on this list is actually an exotic added into the game with the Curse of Osiris expansion. This is going to be another exotic grenade launcher, but this is pretty much the only grenade launcher in the game that I will willingly put on my class, and that is going to be the brand new exotic, the Colony. Now, this one has 2 exotic perks, the first of which is called Insectoid Robot Grenades. This weapon's grenades are insectoid robots that chase targets and explode close to them, and then the second perk is called Serve the Colony. Insectoid robot grenades quickly repopulate the magazine from reserves while the colony is unequipped. So in terms of adding a new exotic to the game, Bungie knocked it out of the park with this one. It is the perfect combination of being extremely fun, looking freaking amazing, and also being extremely effective in most activities in the game. In Crucible, it is a consistent 2-hit kill, and because it is so hard to miss, you are pretty much guaranteed 2 kills every time you pick up heavy. And then in addition to that, in the PvE side of Destiny, specifically when you're doing things like doing strikes or running public events, this actually does quite a bit of damage to bosses, and you don't really have to worry about running out of ammo since grenade launchers do get a pretty high amount of ammo to begin with. So going forward, I would say Bungie definitely make more exotics like this. We don't need things like the Telesto or the Jade Rabbit that kind of shy away to their class. We need more exotics that shoot straight to the top, that are really fun to use, that you can utilize in different activities in the game, and like I said, the Colony is just a perfect example of what exotics should be in Destiny. Now we have reached the top 5 best exotics of Destiny 2, of course, in my opinion, and this is one that was actually at the top of my list last time. It had a hard fall from grace. That is going to be the Merciless Exotic Fusion Rifle. Now this one's exotic perk is called Conserve Momentum. Non-lethal hits with projectiles make this weapon charge faster until its wielder gets a kill. Now why did I take this thing off of spot 1 and put it down to spot number 5? Well, it's actually very simple. Most of the brand new encounters added with the Curse of Osiris don't really favor a fusion rifle, and in addition to that, most of the existing encounters can pretty much be bested with a legendary rocket launcher like the Curtain Call. So with Argos Phase 2 in the brand new Eater of Worlds raid layer, you can't really hit Argos with the Merciless. So the Curtain Call and the Sins of the Past rocket launchers completely replace this weapon as the main best DPS weapon in the game. Now, while it is still extremely effective in things like strikes and public events, there are also other exotic and legendary alternatives that I say are better suited for that exotic slot. So while I still love the Merciless, it really does not have a consistent place in my loadout anymore. So now we have reached the final tier of weapons. These are the tier 1 exotics that should be in everyone's consistent loadouts. The first of which is going to be the exotic scout rifle, the Mida multi-tool, and I don't think anyone is going to be surprised by this one. It is extremely easy just to pick up the Mida and do very well with it. There's almost no learning curve. It has amazing perks. It is pretty hard to duel in the Crucible, and overall it's just a very well-rounded exotic that pretty much everyone loves. Now we're going to go on to the next exotic, the third best exotic in my opinion in Destiny 2, and that is going to be the Wardcliff Coil. Now this one's exotic perk is called Mad Scientist. This weapon fires a volley of rockets instead of a single rocket, and also whenever you pick up ammo off the ground, it automatically reloads the weapon. So this is just an amazing weapon with amazing aesthetics, an amazing story, and it's super effective as well. It's not only great for doing single target damage, you can also clear a huge room with adds just because the rockets spread over a very large distance, and it's just fun to use. It feels really crazy whenever you're using it. It fulfills a very strong power fantasy, and pretty much when you're running around in any activity but the raid, the Wardcliff Coil is going to be a go-to exotic power weapon. Now for the runner-up best exotic in Destiny 2, it actually is one that made a huge jump since the last video, and this is going to be the Cold Heart. Now this weapon's exotic perk is called Cold Fusion. This weapon shoots a steady cold fusion powered laser that does more damage exponentially the longer it remains on a target. Now like I said, on my last tier list I actually had this listed much lower, but mainly because of the brand new raid, it has just shot up. It is extremely good to use consistently, it does great damage, it is great for ad clearing, and most importantly to my fire team, it makes it extremely easy to stagger Argos, which normally proves to be pretty difficult with other weapons. So being able to do this in such a quick amount of time with a Cold Heart is definitely an amazing feature of this gun. So this will pretty much never leave my exotic slot whenever I'm doing the brand new raid. It's pretty much earned a consistent slot in most of my activity loadouts, and overall I don't think there's anything else to say about the Cold Heart. It's just a great example of what exotics should act like. Now we have reached the top exotic of Destiny 2, and this is going to be the Red Death reskin, the Crimson. Now this one is actually returning from Destiny 1, but in a weird fashion, and with this it kept a lot of the same perks. So the first perk is called Banned Weapon. This weapon fires a 3-round burst, and it also has one called Cruel Remedy. Kills with this weapon heal the wielder, and precision kills also refill the magazine. Now in Destiny 1, the Red Death was a pulse rifle, and it was one of the best weapons in the game, especially in the first year of Destiny. But when Bungie brought this back into Destiny 2, they made it a hand cannon that feels almost identical to the original pulse rifle. The recoil pattern is extremely similar. The main exotic perk is essentially the same, with the added bonus of refilling the magazine on precision kills, and this is just what exotics should be in Destiny 2. It is an amazing combination of utility, it's extremely fun to use, it looks amazing, and I just can't think of anything that I hate about this weapon. It's good in PvP, it's good in PvE, it's even good when you're just sitting there in orbit. It's just such a fun weapon, I love it so much, and in my opinion, the Crimson easily takes the spot of the best exotic weapon in Destiny 2. So that is going to be the ranking of all 24 exotic weapons within Destiny 2. Let me know what you guys thought about my list down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like rating and to share it with your friends.